Well, good morning, everyone. I know that there were some warm conversations taking place and hesitated to interrupt them, but we have much to talk about this morning and over the next 2 days. My name is George Moose, and as the acting president of the United States Institute of Peace, it's my honor and my pleasure to welcome you all to this third annual dialogue on war legacies and peace in Vietnam, Laos, and Cambodia. As one who lived and worked in central Vietnam for 3 years during the height of the war, this gathering, this event, hold special meaning. For those of you who may be coming to the Institute for the first time, the United States Institute of Peace is a national, nonpartisan, and public institution that was established by an act of Congress in 1984 to help mitigate, resolve, and prevent violent conflicts around the world. In keeping with its congressional mandate, the Institute is proud to have been asked to serve as the convener of the War Legacies and Reconciliation Initiative. And as an institution founded by Congress, USIP is especially proud to continue the legacy of congressional champions such as Senator John Kerry, Senator John McCain, and of course, Senator Patrick Leahy. Indeed, the War Legacies and Reconciliation Initiative is the embodiment of the vision and the dedication of Senator Leahy, a vision that includes his creation of the Leahy War Victims Fund. The initiative has become a central platform for addressing the remaining legacies of war and for fostering dialogue, healing, and enhanced cooperation between the United States and the peoples of Southeast Asia. And it's also essential to our shared aspiration of preserving peace and stability throughout the region. This annual dialogue was launched here in 2021, and it is a central pillar of USIP's support for Senator Leahy's vision. This year's dialogue holds particular significance, coming as it does on the first anniversary of the strengthening of the U.S.-Vietnam relationship through a comprehensive strategic partnership which represents the highest level of bilateral cooperation. This milestone agreement marked a deepening of the bond between our two nations, a relationship built on mutual respect, understanding, trust, shared interest, and a shared resolve to address the legacies of war and to shape a more peaceful future. We are also mindful, as we gather here today, that Southeast Asian leaders, joined by Secretary of State Antony Blinken and other ASEAN counterparts, are meeting for the annual East Asia Summit, which is being held this year in Vientiane, Laos. I would like to extend a warm welcome to participants from the embassies of Vietnam and Laos who have been active partners with USIP in planning this dialogue, and a special welcome to Ambassador Dung of Vietnam. I would also like to acknowledge the presence with us today of a large and important Vietnamese delegation, which includes leaders from the Diplomatic Academy of Vietnam, from the Vietnam Union of Friendship Organizations, the Vietnam Martyr Families Support Association, the War Remnants Museum, and the Vietnam Association of Victims of Agent Orange and Dioxin. We welcome as well U.S. veterans of the war in Southeast Asia, Americans of Vietnamese, Lao, and Cambodian descent, and the university students and young professionals who will participate in tomorrow's Youth Forum on Shared Roots, Shared Future. Over the next 2 days, we look forward to engaging with you all in a meaningful discussion that will further strengthen the bonds between our nations and our communities. Together, we've made incredible strides in addressing the challenge of our shared history. But there is, as I think we all know, still much work to be done. And we hope that the conversations that we have over the next 2 days will inspire new ideas, new relationships, new partnerships that continue to promote healing and trust and collaborations for generations to come. And with that, it is my great pleasure and great honor to invite Ambassador Dung to the podium.
Good morning, everyone. Ambassador George Moose, Acting President and CEO of the U.S. Institute of Peace. Thank you so much for the introduction, very kind. And distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen. I'm honored to address you today at the 3rd annual dialogue on war legacies and peace in Vietnam, Laos, and Cambodia. I extend my gratitude to Ambassador George Moose and the USIP team for their dedications to organizing this important event and for bringing together such an esteemed panel and audience. As we gather here, it has been 5 decades since the conclusion of the US war in Vietnam. Yet, our efforts to address the legacies of this war have persisted, standing as a highlight of Vietnam-US ties and playing an irreplaceable role in our ongoing process of reconciliations, healing, and trust buildings. The dialogue surrounding this topic also remains vital, reflecting our commitment to honoring those who suffered and supporting those who continue to endure lingering impacts of war to this every day. And when it comes to discussion on addressing war legacies in Vietnam and many other countries, the contribution of the U.S. Institute for Peace cannot be overlooked. Over many decades, our distinguished colleagues at the USIP have dedicated themselves to ensuring that these issues remain at the forefront of public discourse. They have consistently brought together stakeholders and individuals of goodwill, fostering meaningful, forward-looking collaborations while navigating the challenges along the way. So we are deeply grateful for their initiatives and efforts. Thank you. So, ladies and gentlemen, in the 2023 joint statement announcing the elevation of Vietnam-US ties to a comprehensive strategic partnership, the top leaders of our 2 countries recognized the addressing of war legacies as a priority in bilateral relations. This understanding has been reinforced over the past year through consistent messages at the highest levels. Just 2 weeks ago, on the sidelines of the United Nations General Assembly, General Secretary and President Tô Lâm, along with Senator Dan Sullivan and Chris Coons, reaffirmed their commitment to overcoming the remnants of war. A few weeks prior, during a U.S. visit by Minister of National Defense Phan, he and Secretary Lloyd Austin emphasized their resolve to achieve the fullest possible accounting of those lost. Secretary Austin also announced an additional $65 million to be allocated over the next 5 years to advance dioxin remediation efforts at Bien Hoa Air Base. Equally important, our ongoing efforts reflect the will of our peoples. A strong consensus across all levels, from center to local, has allowed us to establish effective mechanisms and channels to advance our accounting work. This collaboration has enabled us to return the remains of hundreds of US service members to their families, providing them with the long-awaited closures they deserve. However, we must not forget that we are in a race against time. In May 2024, I had the pleasures of visiting the Center Identification Lab of the DPAA near Pearl Harbor, where I witnessed firsthand the technical and logistical requirements involved in our important missions. This experience helped me realize just how quickly the window of opportunity to account for our missing countrymen and women is closing. Across Vietnam, the sites of death and burial for fallen soldiers have been heavily impacted by geographic changes and economic development, while eyewitnesses are aging or have passed away. It is crucial that we strengthen our collaboration and mobilize all available resources in the years ahead. So, ladies and gentlemen, while Vietnamese and US agencies have made remarkable progress in accounting for American soldiers missing in the war, the challenges we face in accounting for Vietnamese war that remain formidable. Just as the people to America do, we in Vietnam share the heartache of knowing that our loved ones, parents, siblings, husbands, wives, and children are still out there somewhere, longing to come home. As long as this responsibility remains unfulfilled, the wounds in our hearts will continue to bleed, and the war will never truly come to a close. We greatly appreciate the contribution of the US government, from sharing information and documents on the location of fallen Vietnamese soldiers, to supporting the transfer of DNA analysis technologies between the International Commission on Missing Persons and Vietnamese scientific institutions. However, we recognize that there is much more we can do. For instance, we hope for more direct access to the extensive databases held by leading academic institutions and historical archives across the United States, as this would significantly enhance our efforts. In 2025, we will celebrate 30 years of Vietnam-US diplomatic relations. This is an opportunity for us to reflect on the path we have traveled and the remarkable achievements we have made together, particularly in confronting war legacies. We shall honor the generations of leaders who have paved the way and overcome initial obstacles to collaboration on these issues, including Senators John McCain, Senator John Kerry, and Senator Patrick Leahy, who, if I may add, warmly hosted me at his private residence just last week in Vermont. We will also acknowledge the contributions of the younger generation of bipartisan policymakers who have embraced the mantle of reconciliations, healing, and trust building. This includes Senator Chris Van Hollen and Representative Jung Kim, who have graciously sent recorded speeches that we will listen to during these sessions. Most importantly, we will chart a course for deepening cooperation over the next 3 decades and beyond, moving ever closer to a future of enduring peace and brighter prospects for our peoples. So I hope there will be meaningful joint activities from both sides to commemorate this anniversary and to highlight our commitment to overcoming the remnants of the war. Today's dialogues provides a wonderful venue for these important conversations. So, ladies and gentlemen, I believe most of you are familiar with the story of Bien Hoa Air Base, the site of one of Vietnam's largest dioxin remediation projects. While efforts are still ongoing, we have made tangible progress. Parts of the area once scarred by Agent Orange has been cleansed and transformed into a peaceful park. Within this symbol to renewal stands a bench dedicated to Senator Patrick Leahy, bearing his words. We cannot change history, but we can build a better future. As we reflect on this message, I borrow his words to conclude my remarks. In all that we have done and continue to do to address the legacies of war, we are not merely mending the past. We are laying the stones for a brighter future for our children and theirs, for generations and generations to come. Thank you. Thank you so much.
Warm thanks, Ambassador Zum. It's an honor to have you with us and for USIP to cooperate with your colleagues at the Vietnamese Embassy as well as Laos and Cambodia. I'm Andrew Wells-Dong. I'm part of the Southeast Asia program here at USIP. It's now my pleasure to introduce U.S. Ambassador Marc Knapper, who is joining us from Hanoi. Ambassador Knapper is the 8th U.S. ambassador to Vietnam since establishment of normal relations in 1995, and he's been there since February 2022. So Marc, great to see you online, and welcome.
Great. Well, thanks, Andrew. Can you all hear me okay? I get a thumbs up? Okay, got a thumbs up or 7 or 8. Thank you. Well, really, it's a great pleasure to be here today. I just wish I could be there in person, but thank you, Ambassador Moose. Thank you, USIP. Thank you especially, Andrew and your team, for everything you do, everything you did to put this together today, but everything you do all the time to promote understanding and reconciliation between the United States and Vietnam. As always, it was really terrific to hear Ambassador Zum's words, and as usual, I'm reminded that I should never speak after him, because I think he stole all of my talking points and said it much more eloquently than I possibly could, but I'll do my best. As we heard from both Ambassador Moose and Ambassador Dung, of course, the United States and Vietnam recently marked the 1-year anniversary of the upgrade of our two countries' ties to a comprehensive strategic partnership. And really, in the 13 months since September of last year until today, this period has been extraordinary. Of course, beginning with the President's visit and the upgrade, followed in very quick succession by the visit to the United States by Prime Minister Pham Minh Chinh. Of course, we had former President Vo Van Thuong went to APEC. As we heard, Defense Minister Phan Van Giang visited D.C. Last September. And then we had the big visit by General Secretary of State President Do Lam to New York a little more than 2 weeks ago for the UN General Assembly, but of course met there for a bilateral meeting with President Biden. So we believe this partnership between our two countries, it benefits the daily lives, promotes prosperity, promotes security for not just both of our nations, but people around the world and in the region. We believe that together, the United States and Vietnam are creating opportunities for both of our countries through higher education development, technical skills training, English language programs, and other partnerships that are helping to prepare Vietnam's youth for a more prosperous future. Of course, in business and trade, we've also seen incredible progress. Earlier this year, the U.S.-ASEAN Business Council brought to Vietnam the largest ever delegation of American companies. And going in the other direction, I had the pleasure of leading the largest group ever of Vietnamese businesses to the Select USA Investment Summit in Washington. Again, this past September, we also launched our partnership on semiconductor workforce development, which is going to support industry expansion in both Vietnam and the United States. So as Vietnam seeks to become a high-income, high-tech, digital, and green economy, the United States stands shoulder to shoulder with Vietnam in all of these bold aspirations. Our defense and security cooperation, of course, have also strengthened over the last year. We worked hand in hand on things like port security, disaster preparedness, peacekeeping cooperation, and ensuring a safer and more secure Indo-Pacific. Last summer, to Cam Ranh Bay, we welcomed the USS Blue Ridge, the flagship of the U.S. 7th Fleet, as well as the Coast Guard cutter Wei Shi. And in other areas, anything you could name, the U.S. and Vietnam have worked together to tackle some of the world's biggest challenges, some of the world's trickiest non-traditional security threats, things like climate change, environmental protection, and public health. But of course, as we heard from Ambassador Dung and Ambassador Moose, the foundational pillar to our two countries' partnership has been our steadfast commitment to addressing the consequences of war. And as comprehensive strategic partners over the last year, we've continued great strides in remediating dioxin contamination at Bien Hoa Air Base, expanding our support for persons with disabilities, building up Vietnam's capacity to locate and identify more missing persons from the war, and expanding support for surveying and clearing unexploded ordnance. So, on dioxin remediation, since the beginning of last year, 2023, we completed remediation of the first on-base area at Bien Hoa, and this is something that Ambassador Dung described. And we also commemorated this milestone with the building of a U.S. government-funded peace park, Friendship Park, on that site. This year, we also led a study mission to the United States to support the development of a special thermal treatment design to more efficiently deal with dioxin remaining there in the soil. And as we also heard recently, Defense Secretary Austin, in his meeting with Defense Minister Zhang, announced an increase of $65 million towards the remediation activities at Bien Hoa Air Base. And so we're grateful for everything that USAID and our Department of Defense colleagues have done in this important effort. On assistance for persons with disabilities, again, USAID has expanded its support over the last year to 2 new provinces, Bac Lieu and Cà Mau in the Mekong Delta area, bringing the total number of supported provinces to 10. And looking ahead, we continue to build on our strong cooperation with Vietnam's Ministry of National Defense to improve the quality of life of persons with significant disabilities in provinces that were heavily sprayed by Agent Orange. And myself, recently I had the opportunity to visit facilities in both Hanoi and Da Nang for persons with disabilities. And these, of course, were just incredibly moving and meaningful experiences, and really drove home for me the continued importance of the U.S. commitment to this very, very important task of assisting persons with disabilities. In terms of addressing the issue of locating missing service members, I've been fortunate this year to have participated in several handover ceremonies of wartime personal belongings and information reports related to fallen Vietnamese soldiers. The United States, to date, has returned 18 sets of wartime personal belongings to family members as well as surviving veterans, and these included 12 diaries, 5 personal letters, and over 30 other documents. And after we hosted Lieutenant General Guong to Washington in August, the United States Department of Defense looks forward to continuing efforts to increase cooperation with archival research, information sharing, and we're grateful to research centers and archives at places like Harvard University and Texas Tech University for their incredible work, their incredible dedication in this area. On the issue of identifying the fallen, as we heard from Ambassador Dung, over the past year we've conducted a pilot program which has shown promising results in applying new and innovative DNA technology to hopefully analyze and account for degraded bone samples. And by the end of the year, we hope that the U.S. Agency for International Development will be able to fully equip Vietnam's own Academy of Science and Technology to implement these new cutting-edge techniques. And we are very, very grateful to the International Commission for Missing Persons for their groundbreaking work in this area. And in terms of the search, the ongoing search for missing Americans, we remain so grateful to Vietnam's office, the MSOP, Vietnam Office for Search for Missing Persons, and particularly those who staff it from MOFA, from the Ministry of National Defense, from Ministry of Public Security, as well as the local authorities in these areas who work tirelessly with us to look for and we hope account for America's own missing. Of course, we're incredibly grateful to the work done by our colleagues at the Defense POW MIA Accounting Agency, DPAA, as well as some historic individuals over the years, such as Ann Mills Griffiths. I've participated personally in a number of recovery operations, and I've borne witness at repatriation ceremonies. And my heart is always filled with gratitude for everything that Vietnamese and American teams are doing together for this important cause. On the subject of the cleanup of unexploded ordnance, President Biden announced $25 million in additional funds to expand our unexploded ordnance survey and clearance efforts in the most heavily contaminated provinces, Quang Tri, Quang Binh, and Hue. And we're going to continue to build the capacity in the Vietnam National Mine Action Center, VinMac, as the national authority for unexploded ordnance of UXO work, including, by the end of this year, we hope, the construction of an explosive ordnance disposal training range. And of course, this work as well would not be possible without great partners like the Mines Advisory Group, Peace Trees Vietnam, Norwegian People's Aid, and Catholic Relief Services. Now, as we heard, next year is going to mark the 30th anniversary of diplomatic relations between our two countries, as well as the 50th anniversary since the end of the war, and the 80th anniversary since 1945, when Ho Chi Minh and the Viet Minh fought together with U.S. forces in northern Vietnam. So we have an incredible journey to honor. 80 years, 50 years, 30 years, and today, an incredible journey that we will commemorate of this relationship between our two countries with things like friendship festivals, cultural exchanges, much more, including in partnership with our host today, the U.S. Institute of Peace. And I know that later this morning we're going to hear more about an important effort undertaken by USIP, USAID, and the War Remnants Museum in Ho Chi Minh City. I won't spoil the surprise, so I'll let you hear more later from those folks. But really, throughout next year, many opportunities to commemorate, to celebrate our two countries' bilateral ties, and we hope that many of you will participate in some way or another. Our two countries' partnership is guided by very simple but powerful principles. The United States supports a strong, independent, prosperous, and resilient Vietnam, and we respect each other's sovereignty, territory, and territorial integrity and political systems. And together, we are achieving ambitious goals that will bring prosperity to both of our peoples now and long into the future. You know, as we heard already from Ambassador Dung, we have to thank many individuals in both countries, people of courage, people of goodwill, who over the years have contributed so much and often great risk to speak on behalf of and advance our two countries' ties. Individuals in the United States, as we heard, Senator John McCain, Senator John Kerry, or Senator Patrick Leahy. We can't forget Tim Reeser, individuals like Charles Bailey from the Ford Foundation, Chuck Searcy, individuals like Tal Griffiths, and on. And I know I'm going to leave people out and probably upset somebody, but I'll stop there. But needless to say, this relationship today stands on the shoulders of the efforts of people of courage in both countries, Vietnam and the United States, over more than 3 decades, and we owe it to them. We owe it to them to serve further this legacy of peace and reconciliation and friendship between our two countries. You know, during the UN General Assembly a little more than 2 weeks ago, President Biden, in front of the collected leaders of the world, reflected on our two countries' journey to becoming comprehensive strategic partners. And he held up our two countries' ties as an example to the world. He said, quote, "It was a testament to the resilience of the human spirit and the capacity for reconciliation that today the United States and Vietnam are partners and friends. And it's proof that even from the horrors of war, there is a way forward. Things can get better," unquote. So this acknowledgement, these solemn and really important words by President Biden underscore our progress and showcase the reminder of the potential for healing, to foster collaboration towards a brighter shared future between our two countries. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Ambassador. All the best to you, and we hope to welcome you back here in Washington one day soon. So we will now welcome remarks from Senator Chris Van Hollen of Maryland and Representative Young Kim of California. Due to the season in Washington, they're not able to be with us in person, but they've sent pre-recorded remarks. After they've both spoken, I'd invite our speakers to come to the stage for the next session of this plenary. And at the same time, there are note cards that you can write questions on for the speakers, and we'll have some time for questions and answers at the end. Thanks.
Hi, I'm Chris Van Hollen, and I represent the great state of Maryland in the United States Senate. And I'm pleased to join the U.S. Institute of Peace for your 3rd annual dialogue on war legacies and peace. I want to acknowledge all of the leaders from both the United States and Vietnam who are participating in today's gathering. And I want to thank USIP for organizing it. Last week, we marked former President Jimmy Carter's 100th birthday. And your work reminds me of his insightful words when he said, and I quote, "Peace is active, not passive. Peace is doing, not waiting. Peace, like war, is waged," unquote. USIP has been waging peace for 40 years, and I'm proud to be your partner in this mission. Today marks another step in the long road to reconciliation between the United States and Vietnam. Revisiting the war years and that dark period of history is not easy. Doing the right thing rarely is. But this solemn responsibility is also an opportunity. By working together to bind the wounds of the past, the United States and Vietnam are opening new avenues of communication and cooperation that can extend into the future. One area of the war legacy we are focused on is the ongoing demining effort and the removal of unexploded ordnance. Since 1975, unexploded bombs and mines in Vietnam have killed over 40,000 people and injured another 60,000. I am committed to working with all of you to end these tragedies. The war is long over, and the fields of Vietnam should not remain treacherous battlefields. That's why I'm proud to lead an annual effort in the Congress in support of robust funding for the State Department's conventional weapons destruction and humanitarian demining programs. And I was glad that earlier this year, the Senate Appropriations Committee, on which I serve, passed a bill to provide $73 million for humanitarian demining in Vietnam, Cambodia, and Laos. I will continue to work with my colleagues to ensure that these life-saving programs receive the funding they need. Beyond our work to clear landmines and unexploded ordnance, we are also remediating dioxin from Agent Orange, accounting for both U.S. and Vietnamese prisoners of war and soldiers missing in action, and supporting children with disabilities stemming from the conflict. I was reminded of the importance of all this work when Senator Jeff Merkley and I visited Vietnam in 2023 as part of a congressional delegation. On that trip, we sought to carry on the legacy and work of former Senator Patrick Leahy, who was a longtime champion of strengthening the relationship between the United States and Vietnam. As part of that legacy, we worked not only to help heal the wounds of the past, but also to work together with our partners in Vietnam to confront the mutual challenges we face now and into the future. For example, on Kang Son Island, we met with local farmers whose way of life is endangered by climate change and frequent flooding of the Mekong River. Their plight was not all that different from the challenges that many of my constituents in Maryland face, half a world away, who experience similar threats from climate change in the Chesapeake Bay watershed. As our world gets smaller and more connected, it becomes all the more important that we learn from and support one another as we face such common challenges. As a member of the Senate Foreign Relations Committee, I'm committed to doing just that. That's why I supported President Biden's decision to upgrade our relationship with Vietnam to a comprehensive strategic partnership. And I remain committed to working with ASEAN on an array of regional issues. It's also why I took the lead in passing bipartisan legislation last year to establish a U.S.-ASEAN center focused on strengthening trade, investment, and people-to-people ties between the United States and the people in ASEAN countries. We have much to gain by working together. More stability in the Indo-Pacific region, greater economic growth, and better solutions to the climate crisis, to name a few. As we meet common threats and tackle common challenges, we must also be honest and open about our differences. A healthy and enduring relationship between America and Vietnam requires an ongoing dialogue and exchange of views. As we all know, mutual interest alone will not unlock all the possibilities before us. We must continue to build trust, and to do that, we need all of you gathered here today to keep doing what you're doing. So I'll end in the spirit I began, thanking all of you for coming together today in pursuit of reconciliation and a joint determination to build even stronger and more resilient bridges between our two peoples. Take care.
Hello, I'm Congresswoman Young Kim, representative of California's 40th Congressional District, and currently serve as chairwoman of the House Foreign Affairs Subcommittee on the Indo-Pacific. I want to thank the United States Institute of Peace for having me and for hosting the third annual Dialogue on War Legacies and Peace as we mark 1 year of the U.S.-Vietnam Comprehensive Strategic Partnership. Thank you to all who have joined us, veterans, human rights advocates, and other leaders who will help us create a better future for our world. I want to take a moment to recognize all our veterans present today for your service. As you know, many of our Vietnam War veterans did not receive the appreciation they deserved upon return home. So we welcome you home and thank you and your families for your service and sacrifice. I also want to recognize any students here today participating in a youth exchange. As future engineers, politicians, lawyers, and teachers, you are the future of U.S.-Vietnam relations. Vietnamese Americans have been calling Southern California their home since the fall of Saigon, starting businesses, creating jobs, and building strong communities. One of the many reasons why Southern California is known as the gateway to the Pacific Rim. I represent parts of Orange County, where we have Little Saigon, home to the largest Vietnamese diaspora community in the world outside of Vietnam. Bustling with authentic pho and banh mi restaurants, Little Saigon has become a cultural landmark in Southern California. I'm proud to represent many Vietnamese Americans in my district as well. As chairwoman of the House Foreign Affairs Indo-Pacific Subcommittee, I led a bipartisan congressional delegation last year to Southeast Asia, including Vietnam, where I met with the government officials and the Defense POW and MIA accounting agency, whose jobs are to continue finding the remains of the U.S. and Vietnamese soldiers who went missing during the war. This is an important initiative to finally put some closure on the war legacies and in our efforts to improve on our bilateral relationship. I value these legislative exchanges because of the opportunities to learn from one another, promote dialogue, and advance shared values. I met with Vietnamese government officials to emphasize the need for Vietnam to improve its human rights record and ask about steps that they're taking to support the human rights of the Vietnamese people. In Vietnam, I made it clear in all of my meetings with government officials and emphasized that if Vietnam wants to receive the benefits of being a comprehensive strategic partner of the United States, it must improve its human rights record. I also was able to meet with families of prisoners and religious leaders who have faced persecution at the hands of the Vietnamese government. This trip was important, not just for my work on the Foreign Affairs Committee, but also to my constituents and friends in Orange County who fled Vietnam during the war for freedom and opportunity. Upholding our nation's values while working on the U.S.-Vietnam relationship is more important than any time ever. As we see growing aggression from the Chinese Communist Party in the South China Sea, elevating our relationship with our allies and partners are key to maintaining a free and open Indo-Pacific and rules-based international order. Congress cannot do it alone, which is why I want to thank you for your advocacy for continuing the U.S.-Vietnam relationship. Together, we will ensure the United States, in lockstep with our allies and partners, can promote peace through strength, maintain our rules-based international order, and keep the Indo-Pacific free and open. Thank you.
Welcome, everybody, to this next panel. Time is not on our side, so we will move quickly. My name is Kit Norland. I'm a retired U.S. Foreign Service officer who had the honor to serve in Vietnam as well as Laos. And we have a panel here who are going to talk about give their perspectives on the, in the sake of time, CSP. We have Principal Deputy Assistant Secretary Jed Royal. We have Assistant Administrator for U.S. Agency for International Development, Michael Schiffer, and the President of the Vietnam Union of Friendship Organizations, Phum Anh Xuân. Again, in the interest of time, we're going to move right ahead. The summaries of their distinguished careers are in your programs. So we will have opening comments, and then as Andrew explained, be looking forward to your questions in our limited time. So let's kick it off. Jed, please, for your comments on the CSP.
Terrific, thank you so much. And I just want to thank Ambassador Moose, the entire team here at USIP for their tremendous work to keep this dialogue moving forward. So good morning, everybody. Thank you for your enduring work to advance the United States and Vietnam reconciliation process. and for convening this valuable dialogue. Your efforts have been critical as we continue to overcome the legacy of war and strengthen trust and cooperation between our two nations. I was really pleased to hear the remarks that have already been made this morning. I really feel like we are speaking the same language. It's a privilege for me to share some thoughts on all of this, on the reconciliation process, on expanding defense cooperation, and shared security interests in Southeast Asia. In September 2023, President Biden traveled to Hanoi to usher in what he declared to be a new era of relations between Vietnam and the United States. Our entry into a comprehensive strategic partnership last year was made possible because of the achievements we have had together in reconciliation and through addressing war legacy issues over the last 50 years. On September 9th of this year, Vietnam's Minister of National Defense, General Phan met with Secretary Austin at the Pentagon on the first anniversary of our enhanced partnership. At their meeting, General Zhang and Secretary Austin signed a new joint vision statement, which charts how we'll deepen our defense cooperation in the years ahead. A key part of our defense cooperation is continuing to address and, where possible, overcome the consequences of war. We remain committed to the fullest possible accounting of U.S. service members lost during the Vietnam War, remediating dioxin at Bien Hoa Air Base, and removing unexploded ordnance. To date, Vietnam has helped identify more than 700 Americans killed in the war and assisted in repatriating them to their families for burial with full military honors. Congress reciprocated in 2018 by initiating the Vietnam War Accountability Initiative to help Vietnam search for their missing. This initiative includes organizing millions of war records into a state-of-the-art database. And through this effort, the United States has provided valuable information on over 1,300 individual war dead and identified potential burial sites for more than 2,000 fallen Vietnamese soldiers. Access to this information supports healing to Vietnamese families. It promotes people-to-people exchanges and fosters goodwill between our nations. Another pillar of our reconciliation efforts is Agent Orange cleanup. We are committed to remediating dioxin contamination at Bien Hoa Air Base. In March, Secretary Austin directed DoD to budget an additional $65 million to finish this vital project, on top of DoD's previous commitment of $150 million. DoD is grateful for our partnership with the United States Agency for International Development on this important work. And additionally, we must sustain efforts to remove unexploded ordnance. We've helped remove more than 700,000 pieces of unexploded ordnance while educating hundreds of thousands of Vietnamese citizens on risks associated with undetonated mines. These activities generate confidence and trust between our nations and put into action the words of Vietnam's late Secretary General Nguyen Phu Trong, to set aside the past, overcome differences, build on similarities, and look to the future. And it is in that context that we are now seeing a new opportunity with Vietnam. In our engagements, we talk together about a shared future. Our comprehensive strategic partnership has already laid the groundwork for us to solve security and economic problems through robust partnership. And today we are pursuing new initiatives, including efforts to improve defense industrial base resilience and help Vietnam strengthen its maritime awareness and defense capabilities. Our militaries are deepening our friendship and cooperation through a range of activities. Vietnam welcomed the USS Blue Ridge and a U.S. Coast Guard cutter for a joint port visit in July. In August, Vietnam hosted multilateral Pacific Partnership and Pacific Angel humanitarian response missions. And together we have built more than 100 flood-resilient schools, clinics, and bridges, and over a dozen disaster management coordination centers across Vietnam. DoD will take part in Vietnam's International Defense Expo in December. We're working together more closely than ever. And we are looking to the future. President Biden's Indo-Pacific strategy directs the United States government to prioritize strengthening our alliances and partnerships across the region in order to support a free and open Indo-Pacific. In taking that strategy forward, we are experiencing a historical shift in the character of strategic relationships in the Indo-Pacific region. In June at the annual Shangri-La Dialogue, Secretary Austin talked about a new convergence among Indo-Pacific states that is producing a stronger, more resilient, and more capable network of partnerships that is defining a new era of security in the Indo-Pacific. This network is truly unique to the Indo-Pacific. It's a set of overlapping and complementary institutions propelled by a shared vision and a shared sense of mutual obligation. It works because we have found common cause grounded in common principles. Countries across the Indo-Pacific, including the United States, are converging around these enduring beliefs: respect for sovereignty and international law, the free flow of commerce and ideas, freedom of navigation in the skies and on the seas, equal dignity for every person, and the peaceful resolution of disputes through dialogue, not coercion or conflict. But unfortunately, we cannot take those values for granted. Aggression by the PRC in the South China Sea goes against the common cause we share with so many in the region. The United States is deeply concerned by the reports of dangerous actions that PRC vessels took against Vietnamese fishing vessels late last month. The forceful boarding of a Vietnamese fishing vessel and physical assault of Vietnamese fishermen is the latest act by the PRC to undermine international laws and rights afforded to all South China Sea claimant states. I commend Vietnam and other Southeast Asian partner countries' efforts to peacefully resolve disputes and work cooperatively together to address shared challenges in and around the South China Sea. The United States supports these diplomatic and cooperative endeavors, and based on the comprehensive strategic partnership, we want to support Vietnam and others in overcoming these challenges together. The United States and Vietnam have made extraordinary progress over the last several decades towards overcoming the legacies of war. This is the foundation of our defense relationship. As President Biden said, nothing is beyond our capacity when we work together. Thank you very much for the opportunity to speak today.
Thank you very much, Jed. Mr. Schiffer, thank you.
Thank you. Good morning to everybody. Let me also offer my thanks to Ambassador Moose and everybody at USIP for putting on this conversation, and to Kit for moderating our discussion this morning. As others have already noted, the U.S.-Vietnam Comprehensive Strategic Partnership is a remarkable achievement, heralding a new chapter in the U.S.-Vietnam relationship and our cooperation together, and building on what was more than 4 decades of, when it started, a very, very unlikely relationship. During that time, over the past several decades, USAID has had the honor to be on the front lines of several of the interventions that have deepened our partnership. Our early disability assistance provided through the Leahy War Victims Fund in the 1990s helped to build the mutual trust that paved the way for us to reestablish our diplomatic relations, normal relations, in the mid-1990s, and from there to the Comprehensive Strategic Partnership that we celebrate the first anniversary of today. Over those years, we've shown that we can be there for each other in crucial moments. Just last week, I was humbled to visit a community in northern Vietnam that had been devastated by Typhoon Yagi. When I was a child, such a visit was unimaginable and unfathomable. I was moved to have the opportunity to witness firsthand USAID's emergency relief assistance in bringing needed support to communities impacted by the disaster of Typhoon Yagi. And as we witnessed the devastation of Hurricane Hollen and Milton in the United States, the visit also underscored the common challenges that we face today, and the global nature of the impacts of climate change, bringing into sharp relief the importance of the emergency relief that the Biden-Harris administration is also spearheading for communities in the United States and here at home. For nearly 30 years, we've partnered on development programs in Vietnam and with Vietnam that heal the wounds felt in our bodies, our hearts, and across the land. The partnership signed last year will continue in this tradition. All of this work and more is central to the comprehensive strategic partnership. And while in Vietnam, I had the chance to observe some of the work that we are doing with persons with disabilities in the provinces that have been most heavily affected by Agent Orange during the war. I had the opportunity as well to visit with partners at the Hanoi University of Public Health, where I was really blown away, really impressed by the state of art rehabilitation services that the university is building and providing, in part with our assistance. In September of last year, the university established the first ever transition house for persons with disability in Hanoi, where over 220 employees have been newly trained to help persons living with disabilities through occupational therapy as they make progress on their journeys towards rehabilitation. When I had the opportunity to spend time in Transition House, it really struck me just how far our cooperation has come. From the early days where we were simply providing prosthetic devices to now partnering with Vietnam as it builds its rehabilitation services and its systems for long-term sustainable impact. We've also fulfilled our commitment to expand the reach of this assistance by expanding into 2 additional provinces, as Ambassador Knapper mentioned, Bac Lieu and Key Mau, provinces in the Mekong Delta, so that we are now working in 10 provinces that were heavily affected by Agent Orange. And we've also made significant progress on our dioxin remediation project at Bien Hoa. Together with our partners in the Ministry of National Defense and our own Department of Defense, we have successfully completed pilot testing of the dioxin treatment process to be used at the Bien Hoa Air Base. With our partner support, we'll soon begin construction of the treatment facility and hope to be able to officially launch treatment operations in 2026. Additionally, as both Ambassador Dung and Secretary Royal have mentioned, last month our partners at the Department of Defense announced a commitment to budget an additional $65 million to this project over the next 5 years to ensure that the U.S. government can fulfill our commitment to completion at Bien Hoa under the Comprehensive Strategic Partnership. As we celebrate 30 years of formal U.S.-Vietnam relations next year, we're collaborating with Ho Chi Minh City's War Remnants Museum to co-design and install a renovated exhibit that will help future generations to understand the legacy of war and partnership and how it affects their own lives, and to highlight the current state of the U.S.-Vietnam relationship and the bright future that we share together. By working together to address the wounds of the past, we've established the necessary trust to envision a bright future built on cooperation. The Comprehensive Strategic Partnership also empowers us to expand the scope of our development partnership. Last year, when Administrator Power had the opportunity to visit Vietnam, we announced nearly $100 million towards activities that elevate and expand our partnership and invest in Vietnam's future, to help improve the country's higher education system, to build a workforce that bolsters competitiveness in the global digital economy, to strengthen health security systems, and to build resilience in the Mekong Delta to withstand the effects of climate change, among other important undertakings. Our willingness to heal and to grow portends great things for the future of this partnership. Thank you to each of you for being here today, and I look forward very much to the opportunity to discuss more what we can accomplish together in the years ahead. Thank you.
Mr. Von Einson, please.
Good morning, everybody. Yeah, it is very difficult for me as the last speaker because you have enjoyed great starters and excellent main course. What is left only coffee and tea and some desserts.
As long as it's Vietnamese
But
coffee.
I will try. First of all, I would like to say thank you very much for taking me a chance to speak at the important seminar organized by USIP. And on behalf of the Vietnam Union of Friendship Organization, I would like to extend our warm greetings to all of you. I would like to express my special thanks to the United States Institute of Peace for giving me the privilege to speak at the opening of the 3rd annual dialogue on War, Legacy and Peace in Vietnam, Laos and Cambodia, a meaningful event organized at this time on the occasion of 1-year anniversary of Vietnam-US Comprehensive Strategic Partnership for Peace, Cooperation and Sustainable Development, and towards the 30th anniversary of diplomatic relations between the two countries. I highly valued and appreciated USIP's Vietnam War, Legacy and Reconciliation Initiative in general and the organization of this dialogue. I'm very happy to see that Vietnamese and US people of different generations, jobs, even different political ideologies gathered here for the joint aim of making contributions to heal the consequences of the war, promoting reconciliation and strengthen communication to the people of the two countries of the role of Vietnam and US relations. I would like to convey my warmest greetings to all distinguished guests, partners and friends who are present at today's event. Colleagues and friends, only 2 weeks ago, President Joe Biden emphasized in his remarks before the 79th sessions of the United Nations General Assembly that the elevation of our partnership to the highest level is a testament to the resilience of the human spirits and the capacity for reconciliation that today the United States and Vietnam are partners and friends. And it's proof that even from the horrors of war, there is a way forward. Since the establishment of diplomatic relations in 1995, and especially the upgrade to a comprehensive strategic partnership for peace, cooperation and sustainable development last year, Vietnam-US relations have witnessed significant progress as recognized by both leaders, President Joe Biden and Secretary General and State President Hollen, during their talks 2 weeks ago. For Vietnam Union of Friendship Organization and USIP, since we signed the Memorandum of Understanding last year, first joint activities have been organized, including the introduction of American journalist and writer George Black's book, The Long Reckoning, A Story of War, Peace and Redemption in Vietnam, USIP's Andrew Waldang participation at the International Workshop on Lessons of Peace from Vietnam's Experience, co-organized by Vietnam Peace and Development Foundation, a member of Vietnam Union of Friendships Organization. Especially, we worked together to arrange a visit of American veterans and families to Vietnam. During the visit, both sides had meaningful meetings and exchanged documents and information about Vietnamese and American missing and fallen soldiers from the war in Vietnam. Based on the documents, we have identified the locations of 6 mass graves of Vietnamese soldiers who died in the Mountain Battle in 1968 in the area around the Bien Hoa Air Base, and conducted a field survey out of 6 grave sites. We have conducted excavations and collected 81 remains of martyrs in the Loc Ninh military airport so far, since the meeting. Also last year, VUFO worked with the US Embassy in Vietnam to organize a meaningful conference and friendship festival, the first ever, with over 4,000 participants in one day. A meaningful conference and friendship festival to commemorate the 10 years of comprehensive partnership with the participation of ambassadors, diplomats, scholars, business people, NGOs from both countries, and thousands of Vietnamese people. A lot of cultural activities were organized at the festival in an exciting atmosphere which featured the spirit of the Vietnam-US relations. Colleagues and friends, the motto for the development of the Vietnam-US relations is putting aside the past, overcoming differences, promoting similarities, and looking towards to the future. Our General Secretary and State President Hollen also emphasized this result of Vietnamese-US relations is the crystallization of countless efforts to heal and build lasting trust by many generations of leaders, governments, parliaments, and people of the two countries. In fact, Vietnam and the US have spared no efforts to work together to heal the wound of the war, to reconcile, to normalize, and to develop our relations. During that process, we have overcome a lot of challenges for the future of generation, for the people of the two countries, for peace, cooperation, and sustainable development. In contribution to bilateral relations, VUFO and its member and the USIP and other US partners are proud to be part of the process. Next year is another special year as we will celebrate the 30th anniversary of Vietnam-US diplomatic relations. It is also the second year of VUFO and USIP partnership with potential in the Vietnam-US relations, with leaders of the two countries attaching great importance to the role of addressing war legacy and people-to-people ties in Vietnam-US comprehensive strategic partnership for peace, cooperation, and sustainable development. I hope that VUFO and USIP will work more closely together to contribute to realize the joint leader statement in general and VUFO-USIP MOU in particular. We will work harder to raise awareness of people of Vietnam and the US, especially the younger generations, about the importance of cooperation in healing and overcoming war consequences, including the finding of US and Vietnamese soldiers missing in action, clearance of unexploded ordnance, support for war victims, including victims of Agent Orange dioxide. We will promote dialogue on peace and reconciliation. I would like to take this opportunity to propose that we widen our fields of cooperation to education, culture, science, economics, connect different stakeholders of the two countries to make greater and more practical contribution to the development of Vietnam-US bilateral relations. I would also like to inform you that next year, as Ambassador Marc Knapper and I discussed with each other, VUFO plans to work with the US Embassy in Vietnam to organize a series of activities in 4 big cities, Hanoi, Ho Chi Minh City, Da Nang, and Cần Thơ, to commemorate the 30th anniversary of Vietnam-US diplomatic relations. We both hope that they will be significant events. We would like USIP and other US partners will be able to join us and make further contribution to Vietnam-US relations in the interest of two peoples and for peace and sustainable development of the world and in the region. Once again, I would like to convey my best wishes to all distinguished guests, colleagues, and friends. Thank you very much.
Do we have some questions? Thank you, gentlemen, very much for your comments, and especially some of the beyond the extent of the new elements of the comprehensive strategic partnership. We've touched on something that I'd like to go a little bit deeper on. At the United Nations last month, President Biden said people across the globe need to be protected from the ravages of climate change. Mr. Schiffer discussed a close-up look at the ravages of Typhoon Yagi. 3 million Floridians don't have power this morning. I think the young people attending today and tomorrow's youth forum would be among those who would like to hear more about how the comprehensive strategic partnership is going to help address global warming. Certainly DoD is elevating climate change as a national security priority and integrating it into policies and partner engagements. So is enough being done to cooperate and partner on facing global warming, and looking ahead, what more can and should be done? Secretary Royal?
Sure, I'm happy to start. DoD is in fact looking and thinking differently about how we operate in a world that is changing due to climate change. We're thinking about not only what sort of assets and inventory we manage as a department, but also how we help others develop their own defense capabilities. We're looking for more sustainable ways of doing that. I think there is real opportunity in our partnership with Vietnam to apply some of the technologies and some of the lessons we have learned in our own process. Importantly, as well as the world geography and temperament changes over time, we need to take account of how that will change the behaviors of others internationally. And so we want to make sure that we're thinking about new domains of operation and how we make sure that we retain as much opportunity for peace as possible in those domains. So it's both about how we build our defensive capabilities and how we operate together over time. A tremendous amount of potential with U.S.-Vietnam under the comprehensive strategic partnership.
That's great to hear. Administrator Schiffer?
Sure. As we face increasing challenges across all of our development diplomacy undertakings from climate change, it is becoming ever more central to the work we're doing. In Vietnam, I would point to two areas. First, most immediately, we're working with Vietnam at both the national, the provincial, and the community level to help increase disaster resilience and response capacity. And that includes a lot of important work with the Vietnamese Red Cross. And then more broadly, working with Vietnam to support them on their energy transition, just as we're doing that through the investments that the Biden-Harris administration have led here at home through the Inflation Reduction Act has become ever more important for our development work. And that's not just with Vietnam as they look at their transition to renewable technologies and how to get to net zero, but also working with Vietnam in the broader ASEAN context as we work on the ASEAN energy grid and look to bring online across the region new and renewable energy resources. So that is absolutely central, that energy transition work, to how we're thinking about how we can support our partners in Vietnam and more broadly in the Indo-Pacific as we look to face increasing challenges from climate change in the years to come.
Thank you. Mr. Sun.
Yeah, for me, I would like to share with you some key points. In terms of policies, in Vietnam, we have the National Action Program, and we also, to respond to climate change and global warming, we also have some important resolution issued by the Politburo of the Central Committee of the Communist Party of Vietnam. And at the central level, we have the National Steering Committee on the implementation of the National Action Program. And it is the same for a number of provinces in Vietnam, especially for the 13 Mekong River Delta provinces. That is in terms of policy. In terms of resources, the government have spent a quite big number of financial budget to implement the national programs in cooperation with the support from the international communities, like my colleagues have mentioned, from the Americans partner, from other countries partner, and especially a big number of foreign NGOs working in Vietnam put a strong focus on the global warming in general as well as climate change, in particular in Vietnam. For the time being, out of almost 400 foreign NGOs working in Vietnam, we have identified at least over 100 foreign NGOs have programs for climate change and global warming. Yeah.
Excellent. Well, that's very encouraging. We are a little bit tight for time, and we have actually a very special ceremony that is going to wrap this morning before the very interesting panels that lie ahead. So I'm going to thank again Secretary Royal, Assistant Administrator Sheffer, and President of UFO Shun for their insights on this comprehensive strategic partnership. And now welcome Mr. Sun to conduct a very special ceremony that's coming up.
Dear colleagues and friends, the development of the relationships between Vietnam and the US as we see today is attributed to the contributions of thousands of American friends. Some are here today, and many are not here today. In recognition of the contribution given by American friends to the process of promoting the Vietnam-US bilateral relations, from participating in movements against the war to normalization process of diplomatic relation, reconciliation, as well as supporting the government and the people of Vietnam in socio-economic development and promoting the people-to-people diplomacy exchanges between the two countries. The state president of Vietnam decided on September the 20th, 2024, to award the Order of Friendship to Miss Shelly Benson. I have to share with you that 2 weeks ago, I was with the General Secretary of State and State President Hollen to attend the 79th United Nations General Assembly and the working visit with the U.S. partner. Unfortunately, my colleague, Shelly Benson, because of the health reason, could not be at the meeting with the General Secretary and State President Hollen. And that is the reason why, on this occasion of Vietnamese delegation coming back to Washington, D.C., and at her request, as well as the recommendation of USIP, especially our close friend Andrew Weldon, I would like to be on behalf of the VU4 leadership to present the Order of Friendship to Shelly Benson. I have to share with you, the Order of Friendship is the highest award, the highest recognition from the government of Vietnam to foreign individuals in recognition of their great contribution to promoting the relation between Vietnam and other countries. So please join me to congratulate Shelly Benson. Yeah. And now I would like, because of her health reason, I would like to invite Ms. Susan Hammond, who have flown here from a long way to be on behalf of Shelly Benson to receive the Order of Friendship. Please. This one is very important.
Sally has words to say.
Yeah, please.
Thank you very much. Sally is really sad that she's not being able to join us today, so she's asked me to accept the award on her behalf, and I'm really honored to do that because Sally has been a mentor of mine for more than 30 years. And thanks to the foundation that she and her husband Steve run, the Chino Cienega Foundation, I was able to start the War Legacies project, and we are also able through CCF to transfer a grant to Project Renew for them to build their Quang Tri Mine Action Visitor Center. If you haven't been to Quang Tri, to the Visitor Center, please go. So Sally said a few words. She asked me to send her greetings to Ambassador Moose and the United States Institute of Peace, and thank them for hosting the dialogue on War, Legacies, and Peace. She would also like to send her greetings to President To Lam. She's sorry she was not able to see him, and to Mr. Sun, the President of the Vietnam Union of Friendship Organizations. Her greetings also go to friends and colleagues who are unable to be here, with whom she has shares commitment to the lessening the damaging effects of war. Sally is deeply honored to be recognized for her long friendship with the people of Vietnam, for her work to end U.S. funding for America's wars in Southeast Asia, and for her support of the programs to ameliorate the effects of war, notably Agent Orange and unexploded ordnance. Sally is conscious of both this year's United Nations Day with its global theme of cultivating the culture of peace, and of October 17th, the anniversary of President Ho Chi Minh's founding of the Vietnam USA Society in the weeks following Vietnam's Declaration of Independence. She's also grateful for the Women's Union, the Vietnam Women's Union, founded on October 20th, that hosted her very first post-war trip to Vietnam in 1977. She thanks Vietnam for this honor and for years of hospitality and friendship.
Thanks. That concludes this morning's plenary. So are we off the live stream? Just want to thank all of our speakers, everyone for being